Uber acquired Careem in 2020 for 3.1 billion US dollars, the largest acquisition deal that ever happened in this part of the world.
We didn't really have an idea at that time what we'll do. He had a bleeding in his brain that almost took his life.
Even a catastrophe can spark things to start moving.
In the case of Careem, it was a man's desire to leave a legacy on the planet.
If you go back in time to your younger Mudthir, what advice would you give yourself?
Shoot for the moon.
What is Mudthir doing here right now? Why Mudthir is not in the Bahamas?
Locations in the region were not accurate on Google Maps. The Jumeirah Village Triangle. We used to call it Bermuda Triangle.
This man from Pakistan turned a simple ride-hailing app into a $3.1 billion unicorn. He transformed an entire region. His journey with Careem has touched millions of households across MENA, driven by vision, grit, and an unwavering commitment to make a real impact. Buckle up as we dive into the story of the captain of the ship himself, Mudthir Sheikhah. He's the co-founder and CEO of Careem, or should I call you Captain Mudthir?
Sure.
Mudthir, you've come a long way from Silicon Valley to McKinsey to founding Careem. What made you take the leap from consulting to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, first, it's a pleasure to be here, Tawfiq. And just before I got into consulting, I had the luck that I was in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, when the dot-com bubble was happening. And one of the first jobs that I had was at a startup that had raised $200 million in San Francisco, literally in the center of the dot-com bubble. And as most things went, that was a spectacular disaster because the bubble crashed and we learned many things to do, but we learned more things not to do from that experience. So before I got into consulting, I'd spent almost 8 years in the Silicon Valley, going through startups, being a part of startups. And the journey into consulting was supposed to be for 2 years. I thought, let me move back to the region through consulting, spend some time settling down, making friends, getting to know the region, and then I restart the entrepreneurial journey. But as it goes, 2 years became 4 years until I met my co-founder, Magnus Olsson, who was also in consulting with me at McKinsey. And a few months before I met him, he had a bleeding in his brain that almost took his life. And he had committed to himself that if he survives, he will build something big, and more importantly, build something meaningful that will be his legacy on the planet. And I was very inspired by that sort of ambition to build something big and meaningful. And we didn't really have an idea at that time what we'll do, but we said, let's figure out how we can build something big and meaningful in this region. And one thing led to another, and then we got the idea of Careem and got this journey started.
So even a catastrophe, or let's say a health condition, can really spark things to start moving.
That was the gift to Careem, because as you know, Tawfiq, I think businesses get started for all kinds of reasons. A lot of people start businesses because they want to make money. Some people are very curious, they want to solve a problem. But in the case of Careem, it was a man's desire to leave a legacy on the planet.
Wow.
And that is very special, right?
Yeah.
Which is why Careem, to me, and I feel to the region, is very special, because the sort of inception of Careem was larger than life. And that sort of built something big and meaningful, translated into what we have in our purpose today, to simplify and improve the lives of people and build an awesome organization that inspires, which basically translates into let's help the region realize its potential. There's a lot of potential here. The potential gets lost through the daily friction of life. Let's simplify the lives of people so that they can think of big things and do those big things. And let's make sure that they don't think they can only get a job 9 to 5 and make ends meet, but really shoot for the moon and get big things done, because big things have been done around them by people that look like them. So the whole idea was to let's shoot for the moon and make something big happen.
Mudthir, listening to you speaking so passionately about Careem, let's look back on what were the key decisions that helped Careem survive in the toughest first-year challenges.
Look, starting out is never easy, right? Because not only do you not have any money, you don't have any customers, it's hard, right? And the region was very different when we started about 13 years ago. But I remember there were two things in the first year that were quite pivotal. The first thing was we had this idea to start the transportation business in the summer. Summer of 2012, we said, let's start this thing. This is the idea that we want to pursue. But we were planning to launch it after 6 months. We're like, oh, we have to build the tech. It's going to take some time. Let's get everything ready. And then we launch to customers in the winter. If you know anything about the Middle East or the Gulf, winter is a busy time, right?
Yeah.
Summer is a slow time. If you go to any captain and tell them, I'm going to give you work in the summer, the captain is listening. He's very excited because he doesn't get much work in the summer. So, but if you wait until winter, man, this guy doesn't need you. He's flush with business. He doesn't need you. So at that time, we had a very interesting insight that we should not wait for 6 months to launch the app and launch everything else. Let's hack our way to a launch in the summer. So there was no app, nothing. We just created an SMS interface through which a captain could start a ride, end a ride, tell us how many kilometers were traveled, and we'd SMS everything back to the customer and just make sure the service was getting served without apps, without anything. And that really was pivotal in just getting access to captains at some scale that got the business started. So that was one thing. Second thing was there was an obsession on customer and reliability because we didn't know anything about the transportation business, right? We were consultants doing different things. So we were literally learning from experiences. Okay, this worked well, let's do more of this thing. But more importantly, what did not work well? A lot of issues came up. Locations in the region were not accurate in Google Maps. Like there was a area that was coming up at that time called Jumeirah Village Triangle. We used to call it Bermuda Triangle because there was no locations, no houses or map. And literally there were like 10 problems like this. So as soon as we found these problems, you're like, okay, this is what went wrong in this trip. Let's figure out how we'll solve these things. So we created our own maps. We created our own locations databases. We created our own payment methods. All of these things had to be done because those were the things that people were stumbling on. So that obsession to solve local problems and make the service reliable really came in handy. Because before we knew it, competition that was much better funded, much more capable, came to town. And all the issues that we had solved in the last 1 year became our defense, right? Because they were running into the same issues.
And that's what we always try to tell people. You will never able to really forecast all the problems before you start. You have to start first. Okay. Let's fast forward a little bit and go to what I call it the Big Bang. Mm-hmm. The Big Bang was the largest acquisition deal that ever happened in this part of the world. Uber acquired Careem back in 2020 for a value of $3.1 billion. Now, how did that acquisition shift your strategy? And how did you maintain Careem's identity and values under Uber?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Look, in the first almost 7 to 8 years of Careem, we'd built the ride-hailing business and expanded the ride-hailing business to 100 plus cities in the region, right? All the way from Morocco to Pakistan. So that's what we did in the first 8 years of Careem. And what we realized when we were doing this is so many things that people in the rest of the world take for granted, we had to build it ourselves. Like I mentioned, like people in other parts of the world don't have to build their own maps. People in other parts of the world don't have to build their own payment systems. People in other parts of the world don't have to build messaging systems. But all of these things were not available at that time. So we built this ride-hailing business. And by building this ride-hailing business, we also built a lot of the underlying building blocks that are required to make this business work. So sometime in the 2018, 2019 timeframe, a year or so before the acquisition, we had this idea that now we've built all of these building blocks that can very easily be used to launch the next service and the next service and the next service. So that was the time when the idea of the super app or the everything app started to emerge for the first time in Careem. Now, a few months later, after we came up with this idea, and of course we were fiercely competing with Uber at that time in the region for survival and for dominance of the region, they approached us and said, hey, maybe consolidation makes sense. Let's consider coming together. And as I mentioned, we wanted to build something meaningful in the region. We looked at the purpose of Careem. We're like, man, purpose of Careem to simplify the lives of people, 500 million people in the region. At that time, our monthly active users was only 5 million. So we're like, man, 5 million divided by 500 million, that's only 1%. We've only simplified the lives of 1% of the people in the region so far. So the purpose of Careem is not done. So our response to Uber was not interested because there's so much to do and there's so many new services that we can create based on the idea that we had. But the CEO of Uber, great guy, Dara Khosrowshahi, he basically said, nothing has to change about what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm just going to become a better shareholder than your existing shareholders. So he basically guaranteed us independence. He said, I'm just going to sit on the board, just help you, support you. What you're doing is completely aligned with what we would love to do in this region as well.
That's amazing, especially when you have a strategic partner who understands the business. The support that you get from him is priceless.
Phenomenal.
Now, the general public will ask, after the story of the Uber acquisition, what is Mudthir doing here right now? Why Mudthir is not in the Bahamas, for example?
Yeah, look, I think, like I said, the purpose of Careem has been an incredible source of passion and, more importantly, resilience. The purpose of Careem is not done, right? And as I said, we are still at 1% of the people that we want to impact in the region. And a lot of times people tell me, like, it's delusional to think that you can impact the lives of 500 million people in the region. Because so many of these people in the region live in very small towns and villages. They don't have access to technology. And then I challenge them, like, do you think people in those parts of the region are using WhatsApp? Are they using Google Maps? Many of the people are, right?
True.
So if some technology company sitting so far away can make an impact in the lives of people in our part of the world in such a meaningful way, why do we think we cannot make a big impact? We should be able to make a bigger impact. So the purpose of Careem, still largely unrealized. That's number one. And secondly, I feel especially responsible because we are in tech, somewhat AI. This revolution is sweeping the world. And if you look at what's happened the last 20 years, literally in front of us, right? I remember when I was in the Silicon Valley, Google started. And today, Google is worth $2 to $3 trillion.
Yes.
And just to give you a sense of what that means, this company alone is bigger than the GDP of UAE, plus the GDP of Saudi, plus the GDP of Egypt, and you can probably add a few more countries in it.
So we tell the people that dreams have no limit. And every time you achieve something, you should aim for the higher objective and work hard to achieve it. Now, I've sensed, let's say, the purpose has always been at the core of Careem. How do you keep that purpose alive across the company's decisions? And how do you keep it alive while you are maintaining the growth?
Yeah, I tell people purpose is Careem's superpower, right? Every company has some superpower, right? So purpose is our superpower. So I guess the question is, how do you make it sustain?
Yes.
First, you have to hire people that are purpose aligned. And I always tell people that some of the best people at Careem are people that are both purpose aligned and extremely capable. Because if you're just purpose aligned and not capable, that's not enough. And if you're simply capable and not purpose aligned, then the purpose goes down to the drain. So one, you hire the right people. Number two, we have embedded the purpose of Careem in our values. We have 6 values at Careem. One of the values explicitly is responsible for our communities, which basically means that every year we assess everyone at Careem, are they doing things that show that responsibility to the region? So it's almost mandatory at Careem to give back and do things that are bringing the region up. And third, you have to just be the biggest evangelist of the purpose that you can, right? So every meeting, every email, you just make sure that you repeat, so that you don't forget and others don't forget.
Course. Okay. As the captain of Careem, how has your focus on empowering Careem's captains, let's say, influence the company's culture?
Yeah, we got very lucky with captains, because for tech companies, Tawfiq, you can be very easily sitting in an ivory tower and doing things without seeing the impact day to day. And you need to see the impact of your work to sort of get the motivation, get the feedback loop to keep going. In the case of Careem, every ride that you get into, every delivery that you get, every interaction with the captain shows you the impact that you're making. So for us, that aspect of the business has been incredibly refreshing and igniting to remind us the impact that's being made every single ride that we take, every single delivery that we get. All you need to do is just speak to the captain, and the captain will tell you the impact that you made on his or her life.
Let's touch the humanitarian side a little bit. Careem has partnered with organizations like UNHCR, introducing initiatives for refugees. Why do you believe social impact is essential for business success?
Look, impact is essential for business success, because if you don't make the impact in someone's life, then that person will not give you the revenue that you need to grow the business. So impact is important, just as a foundation of the value that you create. Now, we believe that we interact, all of us living these lives that we live, we probably interact more with businesses and their products than we interact with our own families. So businesses really have the ability to shape our lives. Businesses have the ability to shape our perspectives. Businesses have the ability to shape our values. And we believe that we have a responsibility to make sure that we are shaping these things in a way that makes sense. And I'll give you some examples, decisions that we didn't make that maybe were good for business success, but we thought they were going to take the society in a different direction. So in 2019, 2020, we said, let's become a super app. And if you look at all the literature on becoming a super app, they tell you that frequency of engagement is essential. You need to get the people to transact with you, open the app like multiple times a day. Now, we are a transactional service. Like, we are not going to get you to open the app like every second minute. But there are things that you can do that create that frequency of engagement. So there was an idea that came from one of our team members. Let's launch games on the Careem Everything app or super app, because games get you that engagement. Someone said, let's launch lottery on the Careem super app. That gives you engagement as well. And we're like, man, the region is not going to move forward if people in the region are spending their time playing games and betting on lotteries, right? So we're not going to do those things. There were many decisions like this that we have to stay away from, just to make sure that we're moving the society in the right direction.
So as Mudthir's and Careem's mission is to simplify lives of people, my question is, what or who simplifies Mudthir's life?
Look, I have to give a lot of credit, of course, to my wife. As entrepreneurs, they are the ones that give us a license to not be present as much as we should be present and look after the things that we should be looking after. So she has been incredibly patient. So that's really one. The team at Careem, the leadership team, my EAs, they of course simplify our lives way beyond than we sometimes appreciate and recognize them for. And last but not least, there are some routines and tools that we use, right? So I'm hooked on to-do lists. I'm hooked on calendar. Those kind of tools just help you keep sane in so much chaos and noise that happens around you.
I really wonder what really keeps you, if you can share with us, what keeps you focused and motivated, especially, in tough days.
It's the purpose of Careem, Tawfiq. If the purpose of Careem is to build a Google or Amazon type of institution from the region, we are so far away from it, right? And it may look intimidating that this is like, will we ever get there? But like I said, in the last 20 years, I've seen some of these companies start and become so large in front of me, right? So if they can do it, why should we not aim to do it? We have all their learnings, we have the playbooks, we have the opportunity. And this is just something that is so exciting, so energizing, that it's just hard to give up. And a huge sense of responsibility to make it happen, right? If you're not going to do it, then who else will?
So, Mudthir, I'd go back to family, and I know that me and you, we share the same number of children. I have 4 children, and you have 4 children. People would like to know how Mudthir unwinds and recharges outside of work.
So I think first, before we even get to the kids, sleep is extremely important, right?
Yes.
So when I'm having a tough day, I try to go to sleep so that I think you restart the next morning and then get fresh ideas on how to solve problems. So I think sleep is highly underrated. And then one of the things that I've started doing with the kids is, because I have 4 kids, and when you have 4 kids, as you know,
God bless,
alhamdulillah, it's sometimes not easy to build an individual relationship with the kids. You build a relationship with the group. So what I've started doing is every week I have a one-on-one with every kid. I take them out for 30 minutes, spend time with them.
We're
them what they
talking
want.
about 4 beautiful daughters. God bless
Alhamdulillah.
them.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So every week I go out with them, do a one-on-one, just pamper them a little bit. And then what I've started more recently is every quarter, I take one of them out every, like for a whole day, right? We go and spend a day somewhere. And since there are 4 quarters and 4 daughters, it just maps out very nicely. So alhamdulillah, that's worked out quite well and just allows me to be a bit more present and build the relationship that I've not been able to build
But
so
my
far.
question is, do you notice that the 4 apples are falling away from the tree? Or you see these children, beautiful children, are getting the traits and, the perseverance of Mudthir?
That is hard, Tawfiq. Growing up in Dubai, right? And I grew up in Pakistan. The environment is very different, right?
True.
There was a very interesting quote that I had recently heard from the founder of NVIDIA. Someone asked him, what advice would you give future entrepreneurs to be successful? And he said something along the lines of, to be successful, you need resilience. And for resilience, you need suffering.
Yes.
So I don't know how to wish you success other than to wish you a healthy dose of suffering. If your kids are growing up in Dubai, it's very hard to create that hardship, right? So we can try all day long by putting the right pressure on them, by exposing them to places where they can witness the hardship that the rest of the region is suffering.
It's true.
But it's harder than we expect and realized. So it's a big debate in our household. How do we give them that perseverance, that resilience that is required in life?
I think it's a big debate all across the country because, kids are so much in a bubble in terms of safety, in terms of everything. And, taking them to that hardship and the real world, and for them to really get the idea of perseverance is a very tough job. Now, if you could go back in time to your younger Mudthir, okay? What advice would you give yourself?
Shoot for the moon every single time. I feel that a lot of us made the mistake of not dreaming big enough. I think we just, the upbringing that we had, right? Like, in some ways, we were told, study hard, get a good job, ideally in a multinational, right? That's sort of the aspiration that was set growing up for many of us, right? And that sort of carried through as we sort of came out of college and decided what to do. I wish I had known back then that ambition manifests itself. If you can give yourselves the liberty to be ambitious, crazy ambitious, there's a good chance that you will get there. But if you're not going to even dream big, then there's no way you will take the effort and do the things that are required to get there. And in the case of Careem, we have seen this play out time and time again. We say, let's do this thing. We don't know how we'll get there. Like right now we're saying, man, let's build the Google or Amazon of this region. Do I know exactly what are the 10 steps to get there? I don't, right? But what happens when you dream big and give yourselves that liberty to dream big, then 3 things happen. The first thing that happens is noise goes away because there's so much noise in our lives, right? And you start focusing on the big things that can really take you there. So that's one thing that happens. The second thing that happens is you start attracting other amazing people because no one wants to be a part of a small journey, right? If you're setting up a small shop, no one wants to be part of the small shop. If you're saying, man, I want to build a Google or Amazon of the region, so the best and the brightest and the most talented, most hardworking people will come out of the woodwork and join that journey. And that becomes a virtuous cycle. And the third thing that happens is your eyes are open for opportunities that can help you get there.
True.
Right? Otherwise, you would ignore them and dismiss them. But now, if you have that's the ambition, you're like, man, this opening has opened up. Let me pursue that versus dismiss it.
Mudthir, from your experience, what's a common mistake new entrepreneurs usually make? And how do you advise them to avoid it?
Look, I've seen 2 mistakes mainly. I think the first mistake is sometimes people take too long to launch. Sometimes I meet entrepreneurs, they're like, I have this amazing idea. I've been working on this idea for a year. And I'm like, year? No. Get to the market as fast as possible, put your product in front of the customers, and let the customers guide you. And in the case of Careem, for example, the first version of our product was launched in 6 weeks. And when we launched the product in 6 weeks, there were 1 or 2 features that we thought customers would need on day 1, but we were not able to implement it because we just wanted to go to the market fast. And Tawfiq, we didn't implement those features for the next 5 years. Because when we went to the market, customers were asking for everything else but those 2 features. So first, get to the market as quickly as possible, start talking to customers, start iterating the product based on what you hear from customers. That's number one. And the second is you have to get other amazing people on board. There's just no other way to do it, right? And a lot of times, because of ego, because of titles, because of all those things, people are not able to get other amazing people on board. So in our case, for example, we got super, super lucky that we were struggling to succeed in Saudi, and we found an amazing entrepreneur doing an amazing business, and we invited him to join Careem as a co-founder and acquire his company. He came on board, and frankly, if that acquisition had not happened, then we would not be anywhere, right? We did the same in Egypt, we did the same in Morocco. You have to get other amazing people on board, and don't be stuck in, hey, I'm the founder, I'm the only founder, I don't want to give you equity, I don't want to do these things. This is one of those things, the more, the merrier. Equity is like worth nothing if the value is nothing, right?
True.
So the more you give, the more it becomes.
True.
So just have a big heart, get the right people on board, and then run as fast as you can.
Mudthir, on camera and off camera, I admire you as a business leader. You inspire a lot of people with your perseverance and with your energy. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation for today's episode. And I hope the viewers will really enjoy watching it.
Thank you very much, Tawfiq. It's really been a pleasure. Thank you.